Kane. Brian, are you available at this point?
I am here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So just for those who are listening in, just prior to the pandemic arriving, the MBTA board had passed a draft budget that by statute needs to go to advisory board. Obviously, we'll be hearing a bit more later about the need to significantly rethink the whole approach to the budget, and it does not make sense for us to approve a budget. Steve and his team are going to talk about the process we're going to go through over the next couple of meetings to get there. But Brian has had a chance to look at the budget we had formatted, as well as perhaps any thoughts you may have for us as we get through the next couple of weeks. For those of you who are not aware, Brian is now the acting executive director of the advisory board, as longtime Chief Executive Paul Reagan retired at the end of March, and he's agreed to step in as acting director. He's an old face, having been at the T when many of us first got to the board. So welcome, and carry on with your remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, members of the board. Thanks for the opportunity to offer these remarks as part of the agenda. Really appreciate it. As you said, I'm the acting executive director of the MBTA Advisory Board. For those not aware, the Advisory Board is a statutory state agency created in 1964 at the same time as the authority. Our members are the 176 cities and towns that form the MBTA service district. This encompasses about 75% of the state's population. My members are mayors, chairs of boards of selectmen, or city managers, depending on the municipality's form of government. And as the chairman said, I've been around the MBTA for the past 15 years about. I started my career at the MBTA Advisory Board as a budget analyst, worked in the operating budget department at the MBTA itself for many years, worked for several general managers, and ended my MBTA service in operations for a couple of years. So I'm grateful to be back in front of you virtually and in this new capacity. The chairman said the advisory board did review the budget that was approved by the control board on March 9th. We received the documentation on the 17th. My finance committee, which is 5 municipal officials, reviewed the documents that we received. On April 2nd, we had a draft version of the report that you had before you that was provided this weekend. And on the 7th, my committee voted to recommend it to the full advisory board. And via electronic means, the advisory board did vote by a margin of 134-1 to provide that to you and authorize me to present this to you today. With respect to the document itself, we all understand that the budget presented on March 9th at this point is basically moot. The revenue projections underpinning it will probably never be realized given the new economic realities we face. Sales tax receipts will likely be significantly less than projected, and we must face the likelihood the tax and fee increases assumed in the initial budget may not come to pass. Operating revenue will be likely less than what was projected, as high unemployment will likely reduce the number of commuters using the system, and as parking facilities, not just now, but in the months to come during what we hope is a short recession. On the spending side, several of my members expressed concern at the rate of growth of expenses in recent years at the authority. At the last FMCB meeting, reference was made by Director Shortsleeve to an additional $270 million in operating expenses over the past 3 years. Some of my members wonder how this could be sustained. With that stated, it's also clear to me and to my board that the additional spending is needed for the safety programs outlined in the LaHood report last December, as well as the bodies needed to deliver not only the capital plan, but to accelerate maintenance to improve operations and efficiency across the authority. The budget presented in March outlined scenarios where headcount could increase by 475 positions, costing $155 million more than employee costs in fiscal 21. More in fiscal 21 than was actually spent in fiscal 19. We urge you, the control board, to carefully consider the policy decisions underpinning the significant increases. If funds are required To pay for safety and capital delivery positions, the money must be found from somewhere, and if additional revenue is not forthcoming, then expenses elsewhere must be reduced, and these will present very difficult decisions to be made. The issue of debt, the report also notes that debt, principal, and interest payments will consume over $500 million of MBTA operating budget in fiscal 21, about 22% of the entire budget. The MBTA remains one of the few public transportation agencies in the nation without a dedicated revenue source for its capital budget. And we understand and have been saying for many years that debt is a challenge for the operating budget to support. And we believe that something still needs to be done about debt in order for the T to be improved in the long term. The advisory board report makes 4 recommendations that I'd like to outline right now with respect to the development of the 21 budget that will be continuing over the next few months. We call upon the authority to institute a hiring freeze for all positions not classified as safety sensitive or not classified as essential to delivering the capital program immediately. Safety sensitive positions include operators, mechanics, et cetera, and those envisioned to inspect and deliver on the proposed safety program outlined in the LaHood report. The FMCB must find ways to reduce expenses given the new reality. We suggest that a hiring freeze of this type will give the authority the flexibility it needs to deliver the daily service and the long-term modernization projects we so desperately need. 2, we urge MassDOT and the MBTA to maximize funding available from the FTA under the CARES Act. $875 million is available for the greater Boston region, of which the MBTA is part. Especially since operating costs are considered eligible under these grant funds, we urge you to be as aggressive as possible and take as much money as the FTA can spare to support the existing MBTA employees. 3, we support the administration's request outlined in House 1 or House 2, I believe, requesting the legislature to change its regulation forbidding the payment of capital salaries for MBTA and state bond-funded projects on capital budgets. As long as it is compatible with general accounting regulations, we see no reason why the T cannot account for its employees' salaries on the projects they work on. We note that in fiscal 21, $60 million in operating funds are scheduled to be transferred to pay for capital salaries. A simple change in the law, the $60 million could become available for the operating budget. We urge the control board to support this position and make this position known to the legislature. And finally, we call on the FMCB and the authority to quickly develop and publish output measures to ensure to the public and to stakeholders that money that we are all investing in the MBTA is actually resulting in improved safety, service, reliability, and an overall better system. The Secretary called for such measures on March 9th, and we support that call. Such measures must reflect the public's increased investment in public transportation in recent years, be transparent, be updated regularly, be accurate, and help give us all a sense, not only that our money is being utilized efficiently and smartly, but also that is leading to a better T. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to thank you again for the opportunity to offer these remarks on behalf of the advisory board. I would request that as the new budget process rolls out, that you offer us the opportunity to weigh in once again, once things are a little more solidified. Urge you also to begin the process now as much as possible to begin mobilizing to take advantage of stimulus money for infrastructure that is certain to be coming. There are many good ideas out there that might be able to be done on existing T property that wouldn't require huge planning processes. We'd like to urge you to mobilize as quickly as possible for that. And I thank you again for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. To the other members of the board, any questions or comments for Brian?
Thank you.
Hearing none, maybe somebody can, but Brian, number one, commitment that any process for getting to a budget, we will definitely include a cycle for but in addition to that, these are very uncertain times. So we would appreciate you weighing in with us as we proceed through the next 4 or 5 weeks as well. So any ideas you've got or observations, be happy to have them come to myself or the general manager in any way, shape, or form. We could use that participation.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to go